Just conclusion.
I quote the mainstream sources, the mainstream numbers. He quotes internal investigations of the IDF and hoaxes. But I'm the extremist. But I'm the extremist. But I'm the extremist. Mr. Dershowitz then throws in another lie. He says, oh, Finkelstein, he's an extremist. He doesn't support the two-state settlement. I've been, my entire adult life, I've been involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict. I started publishing on the topic in 1984. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on the topic in 1988. I lecture about 2 or 3 times a week on the topic. I'd like you to show me a statement where I say I don't support the two-state settlement.
Which
I'd like to see the statement.
Do you support
Mr.
the existence?
Dershowitz,
Let me ask you the question. Do you support the existence of Israel as a Jewish state?
Well, you see, now you throw in as a Jewish state.
That's the two-state
I support the right of Israelis to self-determination in the borders before the pre-June 1967 borders. I support the right of the Palestinians to self-determination in the territories occupied by Israel in the June 1967 war. According to the internationally understood concept of the two-state settlement, which has been ratified over and over again in the United Nations for the past 20 years now, that's what's meant by a two-state settlement.
No, it's
now,
not.
Mr. Dershowitz,
everybody acknowledges some changes in the border, the 242 border.
You said I don't support a two-state settlement. Could you provide the evidence for that?
You don't support the kind of two-state
The kind
settlement
of.
that is today's consensus, which means that Israel has the right to define its own existence and to create borders consistent not with the pre-1967 lines, which Abba Eban, who was a great dove, called the Auschwitz lines, but rather with 242. 242, there was a great debate, you'll recall, about whether to use the word the territories rather than territories. There was even a discussion about what the official language was, because as you know, in French you can't say easily and grammatically. And that
okay, why don't you answer that?
Mr. Dershowitz, I'm familiar with the great debate on UN Resolution 242.
Yeah.
I've written on the topic. I went through the entire UN record on UN Resolution 242. The General Assembly debates in July, and then the Security Council debates at the end of the year. Now, Mr. Dershowitz, you have a lot to say about UN Resolution 242.
Yeah.
You even talk about who framed it, Lord Carrington.
Justice Goldberg.
Yeah, I checked your footnote. He has a long discussion on 242. Do you know what his footnote is? On the framing of 242, about which books have been written. I've read 3 full volumes on 242.
I was there.
Do you know what his footnote is? An editorial in the Orlando Sentinel in the year 2000.
I was
That's
there.
scholarship.
No, I was there.
You were there. I know, Lord Shawcroft.
No, I was there with Justice Goldberg. I was his law clerk. I spent a year with him. We were in
Orlando Sentinel
and close friends. We discussed this. I read all the papers leading up to 242. Again, you don't disagree with me on 242. You just don't like my citation of authority.
Orlando Sentinel, a citation of authority. You're a joke. You're a bad joke.
What could have been a great debate, an interesting debate about the future of the Middle East, ends up being a debate about whether or not you can cite the Orlando Sentinel for a proposition that nobody disputes. And that's just a trivialization.
What he wrote and what he cited from the Orlando Sentinel is a flat-out fraud. He quoted the Orlando Sentinel.
Do you disagree that 242
Sir,
left
Mr.
out
Dershowitz,
the article duck?
Mr. Dershowitz, regrettably for you, I read the book. You cited the Orlando Sentinel for a statement by Lord Carrington, or you call Lord Carrington, Lord Carradine, which was a flat-out fraud. You have no idea what Lord Carradine said. I read the original documents. I have them at home. You got the name wrong. You got the evidence wrong. You had an absurd source. Your whole book is ridiculous.
The conclusion is, of course, correct that the word "the" does not appear in the word before the word "territories."
That's not what the citation was about.
For a very good reason, because the contemplation was that Israel who won a defensive war in 1967 and gave back the Sinai Peninsula. Almost no other country has ever given back land captured in a defensive war, that Israel was entitled to make small territorial adjustments. That's my conception of the two-state solution. That was Arthur Goldberg's conception. That was the United States' conception. That was the United Nations' conception.
Do you disagree with
all
that,
out
Norman Finkelstein?
I cannot go into the details of 242 now, although I can probably speak 2 hours extemporaneously on them. Let's go to the facts. Mr. Dershowitz, I'm going to get to it right now, Mr. Dershowitz. You cite UN Resolution 242. You very conveniently leave out the preambular paragraph.
No, I don't. It's
Yeah,
in there.
no, sir.
It's in there.
Sir, I hope this is not going to be another falsehood. I
two
said you left out
242.
the preambular paragraph to 242, which says that given that the acquisition of territory by war is inadmissible under international law. You left that out. But you see, Mr. Dershowitz,
and you leave out
Mr. Dershowitz,
the key, not preambular paragraph, the one that says that Israel has to give back land only in exchange for peace.
I'm talking about your book.
Yeah.
You left out in your rendering, even though you quoted 242,
Yes.
you left out the crucial preambular statement which said, given that it's inadmissible under international law to acquire territory by war, Lord Carradine at the UN then pointed to that paragraph, and he said, if you put that preambular paragraph with the operative paragraphs of UN 242, it calls for a full Israeli withdrawal with one provision. On the Jordanian border, there can be, because the Jordanian border was irregular, there can be minor and mutual territorial adjustments. Minor and mutual. If you go through the foreign relations of the United States annual book, they have the record and the U.S. position. The U.S. position was it was incidentally also Goldberg's position in 1967.
20 seconds.
Minor and mutual adjustments within the context of a full Israeli withdrawal.
Now,
I know 242.
No, you don't.
You don't know you don't know 242 from 195. You have no idea what you're talking about.
You have left
Mr.
out
Dershowitz.
the key provision of 242, which says that Israel's giving back of the land is conditioned on, quote, termination of all claims or states of belligerency and respect for acknowledgement of the sovereignty, territorial integrity of all groups. Right after that, at Khartoum, the Arabs gave their three no's.
I'm not going to Khartoum now.
No to
I'm not going to Khartoum.
And no to negotiation.
I'm looking at the UN resolution 242.
We're leaving it there. That's it,
242
folks.
was never accepted by the Palestinian side or the Arab side. It was accepted immediately by the Israeli side. And Israel has completely complied with 242. Every time it's made peace, it's given back land to Egypt.
He has no idea what he's talking about.
To Jordan.
On that note, I want to thank you both.
Would you like me to comment on that? Israel did not accept formally 242. Okay, no? Then let's stop.
Okay, we're leaving it at that, and I want to thank you both very much for being with us. Norman Finkelstein, author of The Holocaust Industry and Image and Reality of the Israel-Palestine Conflict, and Alan Dershowitz, who has a new book out. It's called The Case for Israel. Thanks, both.